Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us wherever you are and on whatever platform you are listening to us on. As always, your support is greatly appreciated. Today's topic is one that some of you listening may be very familiar with and others may not be. As somebody who grew up in the Midwest, I know this topic fairly well, but if you don't, because I do know I have some international listeners, I still think you'll find this to be informative, eye-opening, and perhaps something you want to consider implementing for your team. So for today's topic, we're going to be talking about the Grinnell system with a coach who is quite familiar with the system as they currently work at Grinnell College. My guest today is Coach Levin. Coach, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing quite well. Looking forward to talking about this because I know that there's people listening who might not be too familiar with it. So looking forward to spreading some knowledge and talking about this unique system, so to speak. Absolutely. So let's go ahead and start, Coach, with introduction to you, your journey, your basketball journey, your coaching journey, where the game's taken you, and where you're currently at right now. Even though I kind of gave it away.
So I'm originally from Oak Park, Illinois. Just west of Chicago. I played at Oak Park River Forest High School, a really well-known program in the state of Illinois, kind of in the western suburban region. From there, I was fortunate enough to go to Grinnell College and play there for the legendary Coach Arsenault, who I know fondly as Coach A. Really, I feel so grateful to him for giving me the opportunity to play there and learn from him. And so I played at Grinnell College, graduated from Grinnell College in 2014. Of course, during my career, I got to play in some pretty legendary games. My junior year, Jack Taylor scored 138 points in a single game, which I tell people is the closest I've ever felt to being in a video game. It was incredible, especially the final stretch he had where he just hit 7 straight threes. I mean, and I'm running around, wondering how did we get here, not knowing how many points he had at that point. And so that was just wild. And then my senior year, he scored 109 points in a game. To me, and maybe this is a hot take, but the 109 game was a little bit more impressive because he shot 50% from the floor in that game. So I know 138 is a lot more points than 109, but shooting 50%, I mean, that's just incredible efficiency. After I graduated, I went and worked for an education nonprofit called Blue Engine. I was working as a teaching assistant in a 9th grade and a 10th grade classroom in the Bronx, New York. I tried to catch on. I kind of knew I wanted to coach and get into coaching and wanted to be a high school coach. And so I got to the school, kind of got myself acclimated in the school, in the building, and went and tried to find the varsity coach. It was kind of a unique experience in the Bronx. The school I was working at was one of 6 schools in the whole building. And so the building was split up into 6 different schools. And so they had one team for all 6 schools. And so I had to track down the head coach there, a gentleman named Chuck Hicks, who I'm really grateful that he even let me, join his staff. Here's a guy from the Midwest who doesn't know, the first thing about New York City basketball other than, it's kind of its reputation across the country. And so Coach Hicks allowed me to join the staff. I was the only assistant. We were at Lehman campus in the Bronx, and we were competing in the top classification in the Bronx. So this is probably some of the best high school basketball, not only in the city of New York, but also just in the country. So really kind of getting after it and learning on the fly that way. And Coach Hicks actually asked me to take over the program. When I was about 4 weeks in, he is kind of getting up there in his career, and he said he was getting ready to retire. And so I took over the program. I was 23 years old. I was coaching, like I said, in the top classification in the Bronx. That first year was rocky. He said it was going to be a slow transition, and then I leave for a winter break and come back, and I try to find Coach Hicks to talk about practice for the next day, and I was told he had taken a 60-day medical leave. And so I was on my own, coaching a varsity program in the Bronx, and luckily had a coworker, Joanna Cruz, who's still one of my very good friends to this day, and she was great and jumped on the staff, and she had expressed interest in coaching, and it was nice to have another set of eyes. So after that first season, I wasn't to be recognized as a coach in the New York City Department of Education. You have to have a full-time teaching license, which I did not have. And so I couldn't, kind of assume control of the program any longer after that first year. And so Francisco Rivera took over the program my second year, which would have been 2015, 2016. And he's taken that program to the next level. He's a phenomenal coach. He allowed me to stay on staff, which was great, and just allowed me to keep going with the program. And I'm very grateful to him. I think something as I look back on my journey and my career is just how fortunate I've been, and how grateful I am to a lot of the people who have helped me kind of get to where I am right now. So after that 15-16 season, kind of realized New York City wasn't the place for me. And so I moved back home. I was offered the position of freshman boys basketball coach at Taft High School, northwest side of Chicago. The principal there was very excited about the system. The athletic director at the time had played football at Lake Forest College, which is in the same conference as Grinnell. And he had told the principal, when Jack scored 138 points, and just kind of gave him an introduction, having been familiar with the system and watching Grinnell play 4 times a year when he was in school himself. And so the principal wanted me to run the system with the freshman team. I also knew Coach Brett Nishibayashi. He was my AAU coach my final year of AAU. So there was kind of just a natural fit there, and he allowed me to be on his coaching staff, the varsity staff, and help the varsity team while I was also coaching the freshman team. And so kept that freshman job. We went 9-16. We ended up averaging like 50 points per game running the system with that freshman team, which I think is pretty high, for a freshman team. The guys really kind of bought into what the system was. Maybe there's an asterisk on that 50 points per game because Chicago Public Schools with their freshmen, kind of their freshman league, city league, so to speak, at the time, I don't know if it's still true, but they wanted you to play 2 or 3 games every Saturday, and it was 6-minute quarters running clock. And so you could blink and the game would be over.
Yeah. Right.
And so it just, it kind of necessarily afforded itself to, maybe our average would have been higher or lower, but in any case, it was just being able to play 25 games at a Chicago public school in that program. I was very fortunate to the athletic director, Ryan Glowatz, who really supported me and allowed me to play non-conference games and get our guys more experience. And I know that's not how it is for all Chicago public school programs, where sometimes for their freshman team, those Saturdays where you're playing 2 games a day with 6-minute quarters running clock, that's, for them, that's their whole season. And so I was very grateful that he allowed us to play as many games and told me schedule as many as you can, get in tournaments as much as you can. And so that was, I was really grateful to him to kind of allow us to play as much as we could. And that second year, Coach Nishibayashi had to step away from the program for family reasons. And so I was offered the varsity boys head coaching position. Had a team that was, we didn't run the system. Our best players, I felt the players that could help us win the most were post players. I think we had a handful of guys who it would have been tough trying to get those seniors in the system, running the system. And I thought they had a chance to play at the next level. And so I kind of made the decision to go away from the system and to just allow those guys to have the best chance possible at playing college basketball. And so we went a little bit traditional, kind of ran an offense that was more post-driven and competed. And so it was a learning year for me. And I felt like I improved as a coach because I don't know how it happened. I probably should have played the lottery. Reggie Williams interviewed for the assistant coaching position. He's still someone I'm very close to today. And I learned so much from him. And he's someone who is now the assistant coach at Wheeling High School in Illinois. And he's someone who, I could hand him the board and just be like, hey, we need a 3 out of somebody. And he had a play ready to go, knew who we should have on the floor. And I didn't feel like, to me, that didn't knock my confidence. I didn't feel threatened. I just wanted to win. And, giving Reggie the board at that time and letting him drop a play to help us get a bucket when we needed one was huge. And I just learned so much from having him on my staff. I told him, I said, you've set the standard for, if I'm ever fortunate enough to be a head coach somewhere else again, like you've set the standard for what I'm looking for. And it was just such a joy to learn from him and also to maintain a positive relationship with Brett Nishibayashi, his younger brother. Chad was the sophomore coach at the time, and Chad joined the varsity staff as well, just to have a little bit of continuity with those juniors in the program. So, but after that year, Coach A was retiring. He was handing the reins over to his son, who's still the head coach at Grinnell, Dave Arsenault Jr. And as a retirement gift to Coach A, the basketball alumni at Grinnell raised enough money to provide Dave with a full-time assistant for 3 years. At that time, the assistant coaching position was part-time. I think Coach A said he hadn't had a full-time assistant for about 20 years.
Wow.
And so it's like home. I felt like Grinnell College was like my second home. I loved it there. I had a great experience. The system is the most fun I've ever had with the game of basketball as a player. And I just felt like I needed to throw my hat in the ring, just to go back. And I had no college experience on my resume, something that's really tough.
Yeah,
to get
exactly.
As a college coaching job, anywhere with 0 college experience on your resume. I tried that the year between New York and Chicago. I tried to get into college coaching and just couldn't. I didn't have the resume for it. And so I, was fortunate enough that Dave offered me the job. I accepted it like 6 hours later, which I know is not the way it should be, but I was so freaking excited. I was just ready to get going. So this is my 3rd year on the coaching staff at Grinnell. And it's just been great getting to learn from Dave, who I think is just a genius and has an incredible basketball mind, and getting to spend time with Coach A, who's still around the program, comes to practice every day. And I just think, learning from those 2 guys, I find myself doing a lot of listening and, in Dave's office when we could talk basketball and talk about practice and what we need to fix. And I just found myself listening and trying to learn and absorb as much information as I can. So, it's been great. It's been a journey for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm really, really thrilled to be at Grinnell and thrilled to be here with you and talking some system hoops.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of great how it kind of all came back. It all came back. It was a little bit of a winding journey from New York,
Right.
Illinois, but you ended up back where, like you said, place that you almost consider to be home to you. So no, I think that's great. And I know that one of the things with your job description that you do is that you do some work with strength and conditioning. And I know that a lot of high school coaches are always interested in that transition for their players who are going to play at the next level. So I wanted to ask you, what is going to be that biggest transition for those high school players when they make the jump to playing in college in whatever level? What is that biggest adjustment going to be for strength and conditioning and what it looks like for a senior in high school versus when they make that next step to being a freshman in college?
Sure. So it's a really good question. And I think a lot of times what happens is, guys don't necessarily understand how much faster the game is at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
The college court is bigger than the high school court, and guys can cover ground. And you're playing against, when you get into college from high school, you're playing against guys who have been there before and have been there already. And so kind of the best way I think, guys can prepare for that adjustment. You're never going to be prepared for how much faster it is. It's just
Mm-hmm.
something you have to experience. But I think paying attention to detail and perfecting form in your lifts and asking questions, because I think form is the most important part of strength and conditioning. And if you have poor form, you're exposing yourself to injury risk.
Yeah.
And, I think just asking questions, asking the strength coach, hey, how does my form look? Not being afraid to ask that question, because the strength coach, at least in my eyes, myself and Coach Jason Martinez, who's the head strength coach at Grinnell, defensive coordinator for the football team, we're here for athletes, and we want to help athletes be successful. And so that to me is really the big thing, is paying attention to form and that attention to detail.
Yeah, and I think like you bring up a good point in that, for those athletes to ask questions and to ask about like whether it's their form or ask about like things that they're feeling or like things that are like going on, with their body. I think that one of the things as coaches, even at the high school level, that we can definitely make sure that we're doing is helping our players like advocate for themselves and like speak about the things that they're noticing or make them feel comfortable asking questions, because I know that, in your situation, you don't want a player just like kind of going through the motions of their strength and conditioning and not really asking questions or really understanding why they're doing the things that they're doing. So like you said about like form being so important, I think just having like knowledge and understanding like what your body is doing and what your body needs, I think that can only help players if they feel comfortable asking those sort of questions.
For sure. Yeah. And it's about creating that level of comfort,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not only within your team, but also, as coaches, kind of just being able to show vulnerability and opening up that platform. So athletes can feel comfortable, showing vulnerability as well. And just
True.
saying, hey coach, I hit the squat rack 2 days ago. My back's really killing me. Can you watch my form?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. It happened to me too,
Right.
we've been there and feeling different things. So you make a great point, is teaching athletes to trust what their body is saying and ask those questions. Yes, that's very important too.
Well, I like that you brought up that point too about, like that you as a coach have been through this before. I know that even as a teacher, I realize that, students sometimes don't think I make mistakes, or players don't think I make mistakes. It's funny, like I'm an English teacher and I spelled something wrong once, and kids like were like shocked that I spelled something wrong. It's like, yeah, like I'm human. Like those things happen. Or just like with you, like, yeah, you've had experience with like something didn't feel right, like you said, on like a squat rack or doing something. And so, having our players understand like, hey, like we're human, and these things that you're feeling, we felt them too, or we make mistakes
Right.
too. And, like we're not perfect and we don't expect you to be perfect. And I think
Right.
I think that's a really good message to try and get through high school, especially for high school players, so that if they get more and more comfortable asking those questions or having those discussions, by the time they get to college, they're already used to it and they're more comfortable with it than other players might be. So I think that's great. A great little bit of advice there. Now, as we start talking about implementing and putting in Grinnell and the philosophy behind the system, there's a lot of resources that are out there, and there's a lot of things that we could just discuss just in terms of the implementation. And like I said, I know some of you who are listening, this may be completely foreign and completely new to you. And so if some of the things that we discuss are of interest of you, we'll definitely include some information in our show notes to kind of give you more like nuts and bolts, kind of the guts of it. But just to kind of give a more of a skeleton outline, Coach, what is kind of the basic principles or philosophies that make up the Grinnell system?
Yeah. So from a bird's eye view, and I can't take credit for this analogy. This is all Coach Dave. But when we tell recruits or their families, what is the system like? Just imagine your team is down 10 points with 2 minutes to go, and just take away the intentional fouling. What is your mindset in that certain point? Well, you probably want to get some threes off. You only have 2 minutes to go. You probably want to take some risks defensively, and trap and press full court and really just try to force tempo. So for us, we try to, on the offensive end, we try to maximize 3-point shots, and try to score or get a shot up in 12 seconds or less on offense. And then on the defensive end, we full court press the entire game. We're going to double the ball wherever it goes on the floor. And we want to force a change in possession in 10 seconds or less. So whether that's the other team takes a shot, we force a turnover, the other team scores, which happens a whole lot. Playing our way, we want to get the ball back in 10 seconds or less, and just increase the number of possessions we get per game, and control tempo and make the other team play at our pace. Mm-hmm. And in the order to do that, we have to play a lot of guys to do it successfully. And so we're sending, it's very similar to hockey substitutions. We're sending 5 guys to the scorer's table every 35 seconds, and they go in on the next whistle. It tends to be about a minute, as long as you're on the floor for about a minute. And that allows us to play with maximum energy and maximum effort. And people ask a lot, is it weird being able to find a rhythm? Isn't it tough? That's a weird transition. You're only on the floor for a minute, and then you're off for about 2 before you go back on. And yeah, it is. It's tough. You're not playing, you're not used to playing basketball like that before. And I can tell you as a player, it takes about 2.5 weeks to really kind of adjust. Mm-hmm. A lot of traditional basketball, you're not subbing every minute. And, guys are on the floor and they're able to get a rhythm and kind of just feel the game out for what it's worth. And, at Grinnell, you just kind of have to change your mindset a little bit. But once it clicks, it's the most fun I've ever had with the game of basketball as a player, as a coach. I just think it's super exciting, and just incredibly fun, and fun for the players, fun for the coaches, fun for the fans. Not necessarily fun for the opposing team or the opposing coaches, but we want other teams to adjust to us and adjust to our style of play.
And I know for me, again, I'm pretty well versed, at least with the ins and outs of Grinnell. I mean, that's like the hallmark, is just like throwing bodies at you, yep. Always, and like I said, consistent with the pressure, kind of throwing bodies, kind of like you said, like those hockey line substitutions, sort of. I've heard of that analogy before as well, and just like the pace of play and just like the energy and just kind of. That it's always up is always what I've kind of noticed. It's like it's up, and as you mentioned, for like the players, like it's a very high energy, like high investment, and like they're in it they're in it, and the energy level is pretty high. And so for coaches who, let's say they do a little bit more research and they do a little bit more like looking into it, and then they see some of like the tenets and philosophies to it, and they, maybe they're a little bit interested, and they're thinking to themselves, well, is this something that my team can even run? What would you say to a coach who might be asking that question? Like, is my team, if their team is even like the type of team that can even run this system?
So the first thing I would say is, don't sit here and think you need a whole lot of bodies in order to do it. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to run the system with 7 guys, you probably might want to reconsider. But if you have 10, 12 guys, I think that's a good baseline to start with. The hockey substitution is really because we dress 20 guys a game. And in the first 10 minutes, we're playing 16 to 18 guys, just to kind of create pace and tempo. And so for coaches who are thinking about running it, if you have some of those more numbers, I think you can, go with it. Obviously, you think you need shooters, and you're probably right. You do need some shooters, but it's a point guard driven offense. If you have a ball handler, if you have a point guard who can create plays not only for himself at the rim or from 3, but can create for others as well, you're already ahead of the game. And being able to develop the system around a point guard or two like that. But I think if you're looking for kind of the intangibles of what a team could look like that runs the system, if you have a group that is selfless and are willing to play at high energy all the time, that right there is like the toughest part to to really kind of get. You can find players and you can make the system fit around your personnel, but a lot of it has to do with the mental component of running the system.
Yeah.
And having a team that's selfless, having a team who understands, you know what, we probably want, player A to take 25 or 30 shots because he can shoot really well and he's going to give us the best chance at winning. So now how can I, as a player, as a teammate, help player A get going and get open? And if you have a team full of those guys who are willing to defer, not necessarily kind of point fingers when things are going bad, but being able to rally each other around each other and keep things going that way, I think you're in great shape. Just you're ahead of the game and more than other programs who are considering running the system.
Yeah, and just the buy-in with each other, kind of like as you mentioned, if like the players are bought into each other and the players are, you mentioned like being selfless and are willing to kind of sacrifice maybe a little bit of themselves for like the betterment of the team and understanding like what is going to help the team to be the most successful. I think if a coach does a really good job with that team building aspect and kind of understanding, here's our objectives, here's what we're trying to get done, definitely could lead to some really good results. I completely agree with that. I think just buy-in in any system, if the players are believe in it and believe in each other, I mean, that's going to go a long way in whatever it is that you're implementing. And I know that because I've heard it, I know that, something that terrifies some coaches, especially at the high school level, about, if they're going to put in the system, is that coach, like, I don't have 15 people that I trust on this floor. I only have like 6 that I trust on this floor to do certain things. What would you say to that coach who's like that they're like terrified at the high school level of like I don't trust 15 different people to get out on the floor?
I understand where you're coming from. I totally do. And that's what I would tell that coach. I just think about when I ran it with the 9th grade team, we didn't necessarily have, guys who, were really good basketball players, but you're able to find a role for someone who might not be your most skilled or talented player. It's super important in the system because of how high energy we want to play, how fast we want to play. When a shot goes up, 4 guys are crashing the offensive boards and the shooter's rotating to the top. And if you have a guy who's high energy, who's willing to lock down on defense, who's willing to crash the offensive glass, who's willing to screen for your shooter, there's a role for someone out there. If you're playing shifts, and if you need to split the minutes, so you're not always throwing 5 in, 5 out at a time. If you can't do that, there's still ways to find spots on the floor for guys who aren't necessarily the most skilled or most talented. And I think that's the beauty of the system, right? Especially at the high school level, is you're able to play guys who, if you were running a traditional system, if you're running a read and react, or you're running a Princeton, or running a flex, or running any sort of traditional kind of offensive concept, and playing a pack line defense or playing an intricate matchup zone, then you probably don't have room on the floor for those guys. You can play a shorter rotation at that point. But with the system, you're creating these moments and you're creating a culture where you have guys where you can find spots on the floor for guys who aren't necessarily talented because they're willing to play hard. And that is so contagious. Yeah. Having an energy guy on the floor, it just kind of lifts the energy, not only for the 4 guys who are with him on the floor, but for everyone else who's in the rotation on the bench. If you can find minutes for an energy guy, that's huge. I mean, that's going to help kind of set the tone in the gym, not only during a game, but every day in practice. And it's about celebrating that guy. He's probably not going to get you 25 points a game, but if you have a guy who's willing to kind of put himself out there, if you can celebrate that guy and just kind of create, a sense of this is what we're looking for. And he's not giving us 25 points a game, but he's giving us everything else that we need in order to be successful. Players look at that and just find it to be incredibly contagious, and it just raises the level of everyone in the gym.
So if you have that player who, they're not really a ball handler, they're not really a shooter, the things that they can do within the system, I just want to retouch on that one more time. I know you talked about, crashing the boards or setting screens. What are some of those other, maybe not necessarily basketball related skills that this player, if they're putting in the effort, this is where their value is going to be in the system?
All the little things that you can imagine. If it's if it's a wing player and he's willing to just kind of deny hard, on the wing in the press, or he's willing to trap hard, he's willing to get on the floor and get dirty, go after loose balls. He's willing to pump his teammates up. He's willing to set screens. He's willing to crash the offensive boards. If you have someone who can do that consistently and doesn't necessarily need shots in order to continue with that, that's a special player, number one. That's incredibly rare to find at the high school level, in my opinion. And it's just celebrating that guy and then finding a chance for that guy to become involved in the offense. Find a way for him to get a layup when the other team is extending to the 3-point line super hard, or find a way, if you're able to get up in a game, you're able to get up, 15, 18 points. Just tell the team the next time down the floor, we're all screening for that guy because he does so well. And when he hits a bucket or anything, the play should go nuts, because that's someone who his effort might not show up in the box score.
Yeah.
That's someone you need in order to be successful running the system.
Right. And I really like the part that you mentioned there about just like celebrating that person. And I think that they definitely need to be recognized, because like you said, they don't necessarily show up in the box score, but if they're doing all of those other little things and they're giving that maximum effort, like, they're vital to your team's success, and you can't be successful without that player, doing those things. And so I also do like the idea of trying, to set some screens, get them open, get them a look or something so that they can be, get something on the box score as well. I think that's nice too. Now in the high school level too, I know that, and again, I'm just going through things that I know I've heard over the years about people who may be like hesitant or may have some reservations. And one of the big ones I have heard is that, like, well, coach, I got this kid and, he scores, like 25, 30 a game. I always need this kid on the court. I can't afford to have this kid come off the court or sub him out in and out. And I've also heard, things about like, my kid needs to be in a rhythm, they can't be going in, 1 minute and then out another minute. So for some of those common concerns, especially at the high school level, what would you say to maybe try and, kind of relieve some of those concerns that a coach might have?
If you have a guy who you feel you need on the floor at all times, one, congratulations. That's a very special player that you have. And there are ways to find him breaks, and there are ways to find him to find as much time on the floor as possible. One thing that we do on occasion with some of our top scorers is we'll play them offense defense. And so when obviously you want them on the floor on offense, and so they're on the floor for offense. The second there's a whistle and we're on defense, he's got a guy going to get him at the table. And so now there's a defensive sub in. That guy can get a little bit of a rest. But the second there's a whistle and we're back on offense, the scorer, the guy you want on the floor, is going back in the game, and he's going to go play offense. And there are ways to just, play with the substitution patterns. It's not necessarily a rigid 5 in, 5 out every time. There are high school coaches around the country who run a variation of the system where they kind of just play guys in longer lengths. It's something when Coach Dave, he was the head coach of the Reno Bighorns for 2 years, which is the former Sacramento Kings affiliate in the G League. They're now the Stockton Kings, I believe. But it's something he learned, he learned while coaching the Bighorns was, professional basketball players, they don't take too kindly to being pulled every 2 minutes. And so he had to find a way to fit the rotation where he could play guys for longer stretches, but also find a way to get fresh legs on the floor as well. And then to your other point about, players finding a rhythm, it's difficult. It's tough. And I think there's a really important life skill, not necessarily a basketball skill, but an important life skill in kind of normalizing how tough it is to transition into something you're not comfortable with. And, basketball players, right? Playing basketball myself can speak to it. Like, yeah, you want to be on the floor for longer.
Yeah.
You want to get your shots, right? You want to get your shots up. If you're a scorer, if you're someone who's supremely talented and very skilled and you can put the ball in the bucket, yes, you want to be on the floor longer. That's fine. But the way we play and the way we're trying to play is as fast as possible with maximum effort and maximum energy. And sometimes you're going to have to come off the floor, but that's just so you can go and play your tail off while you're on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something, I think, very important in being able to embrace that and being able to embrace discomfort and kind of turning it into something that you're comfortable with.
Right.
And it translates not only on the basketball floor, but definitely something that I know I've taken myself. I've taken it and applied it to different areas of my life. And I just feel so much more successful and comfortable doing so.
Yeah, and I think the point about like the buy-in and understanding the purpose of, like you mentioned, like, no, we're going to take you out just so that, when you come back in, now you're ready to, give that maximum effort that you were giving before. And I think that, like I said, it's a transition and it's a bit of a life skill and just kind of understanding, like, here's the rationale for this, here is the purpose. And if you kind of buy into the bigger picture of what we're trying to accomplish, I'm sure that helps players kind of make that transition and kind of get them to understand the purpose of it. And then like we talked about earlier, like, they're going to be celebrating, the success of the others that are coming in, and they're going to be keeping the energy up while they're waiting for their turn to come in. And then hopefully it just kind of feeds off each other. And like the energy is really high when they're on the court. And then it's also pretty enthusiastic and high even when they're off the court as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we touched on this just a little bit, but kind of right now of kind of like the rhythm of players coming in and out. But when you have players who are coming into the system for the first time, and then also, for like maybe high school coaches who are going to be putting in this system, what habits do you find yourself kind of needing to change, whether it's like a mental or just a basketball related thing, for them to really like get in the system and really like buying in and doing the things that are needed in it?
So my first recruiting visit to Grinnell, one of the players on the team, we're playing an open gym, and one of the players on the team said to me, he's like, if you come here, you really have to unlearn all of the good habits that you've picked up playing basketball in your life and just kind of forget about them. And that was pretty eye-opening to me, number one. And then I get there and it's like, I kind of understand what he's saying now. To me, if you want to make the, as we like to say, right, you want to come over to the dark side and run the system, you have to instill the ability to overcome adversity and maintain confidence in your players. When you're playing the system, you're getting a ton of shots up. And an important lesson that I learned from Coach A early on is you look at some of the best shooters in the NBA, their percentages are mid to high 40s, which means they're technically missing more than they're making. And so if you are, if you're a 40% shooter, 45% shooter from three, hey, that's pretty stinking good, but you miss more than you make. And so having that kind of mindset of, all right, well, if I put up this three, the odds are against me technically of it going in, right? Mm-hmm. But if it goes in, I've beat the odds. This is wonderful news. I scored. I beat the odds. And just kind of having this idea of, you know what, the next one's going in. The next one's going. You're going to have nights where you go 2 for 14. But you're also going to have nights where you're going to go 7 for 14. And those nights are a little bit more fun, right? Because you're hitting shots and it's showing up in the box.
Sure.
But being able to approach every single game with that kind of confidence. And then overcoming adversity, and this happens a little bit more for the guys who play the back of the press. But getting comfortable and becoming okay with being scored on. A lot of times with our press, it's going to create advantages for the other team, at the back end. You're going to see a lot of 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s, 3-on-2 situations. And having played the back of the press myself in the system, at first it was tough to just kind of, you get scored on. You're like, well, dang it. I'm not used to getting scored on this much.
Sure.
But it's all about, hey, that's fine. You look at it more as a change of possession, right? Okay, we're getting the ball back now. I got to do my job. Is I got scored on, shucks, let me grab this, get the ball out, get it up to the point guard as fast as I can, and let's just go get another one on the other end. And that's tough to teach, especially high school kids. And it was tough for me to teach ninth grade kids to accept that, right? And just say, I just keep getting scored on. I keep getting scored on. You know what? That's not necessarily the worst thing, because it creates another possession for us in the way we play. A successful defensive possession for us is having a good chance at a steal. If we have a good chance at a steal, that's a good possession for us. If we have a good chance at a steal and get scored on in 8 seconds, we're trying to get a change of possession in 10 seconds or less. We fit that quota. That's fine. We had a good chance at a steal. They got a bucket. Let's get it out from under the bucket. Let's get it up, and let's go get a 3. And we're trying to play a 3-for-2 game. And then, a couple of other things that come to mind, crashing the offensive boards hard.
Sure.
There's no team that I can think of, or no coach I've ever heard say, I have a solid strategy for when the other team gets an offensive rebound. It doesn't exist. It's so hard to plan for. And to me, just being able to have guys crash the offensive boards, be able to grab offensive rebounds, and just kind of break the other team's back with kind of an effort play. It's really important, but it's also something that's really tough to teach, because in basketball, you have, 2 guards. Maybe you have 2 guards getting back if you're worried about the other team, getting out in transition. For us, it's the shooter he's putting up a shot, and then he's rotating to the top, and everyone else is going to the offensive glass, because if we can get another possession, if we can get another shot up, that's what we want. That just plays right into our favor. And then lastly, I think not conserving energy and playing at full speed the entire time you're on the floor. Like, to us, that's what the system is all about, is we want you playing at maximum effort, maximum energy the entire time you're on the floor. And you're only on the floor for a minute. And if you can harness that and just bring it 110% for 1 minute, you go to the bench, you get some water, you talk about what you're seeing out there, you communicate with your teammates, but then you get ready to go back out there again. If you can really learn how to play full speed for a minute while you're on the floor, for however long it is you're on the floor, that's so valuable. And it's so tough to teach, because like you said, there's a lot of guys out there who feel like they need to be on the floor for, if you're playing a 32-minute game, they're playing 28 minutes. Well, you can't really go 100% for 28 minutes. You're going to, halftime, you're going to be, rolled up over a garbage can, or unable to walk out of the locker room for the second half. And so you do have to naturally conserve energy. But if you can teach a guy, hey, you're on the floor for 1 minute, give it all you've got for 1 minute, then come off, get your breath, and then go back out there for another hard minute, that is so contagious. And it definitely is something that the system is predicated on. And it's very tough to teach, but once players realize it, understand it, and embrace it, holy cow, it really makes a huge difference.
What's the difference in the system from whether it's your playing experience or from your coaching experience with players giving maximum amount of energy versus getting to the point where like they're being like reckless or like inefficient? Is it, just making bad attempts at steals or not taking the right amount of shots? Like, how do you kind of define where the line is between the two?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think, we'd rather mistakes be made, especially with guys who are just coming in and are just kind of getting their footing in the system, we'd much rather have you make a mistake going 110 miles an hour than make a mistake going slow, right? If you're gambling for a steal, well, that's okay, right? If you're learning, at least you have that mindset. The first thing we want is to have that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Then we might get into a film session and say, hey, you know what? Here's a time where love your effort, love your energy, love that you want to go for a steal, but here's a time where maybe you could have backed off a little bit, and here's why. They've been burning us on the back end with threes in the corner. So here's a time where maybe you're going a little too fast, but you kind of have to know the opponent as well. And so maybe that was a time to just kind of, hey, stop right there. You missed it. You didn't get it, but at least get your hand high. It gives us time to get back and maybe get out to shooters who have been burning us. And that's kind of how we'll address that.
So you can kind of like for you, like you don't mind kind of like dialing it back a little bit if needed be, as long as like the intent is good and like the energy level is right, because you can kind of work with that because their intent of what they were trying to do, at least you're able to kind of make sense of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's that's the toughest part, is the energy and effort. Embracing that is really tough for us. And just, especially with guys who are just kind of coming into the system and figuring out their role and how to play in the system. Mm-hmm. And so we just try to create that, that kind of high effort, and creating that mindset, right? Sure. Embracing tempo over execution is huge, because without the tempo, you can't execute anything in the system. And so you really need the tempo first. And then once the tempo is there, then you can focus a little bit more on execution. But tempo definitely has to come first.
Right. It sounds like if the buy-in is there and the mentality is there and the energy level is there, then you can focus a little bit more on the refinement, because they're already mentally kind of like where you need them to be. Like they're already thinking about it the way you want them to. So then it's just a little bit more about tweaking to like get it a little bit more refined.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So it was funny. This is probably one of the topics in which I had the most questions that other coaches wanted me to ask a guest. So I want to make sure I hit some of these. And this was one that came in just a couple days ago. So I'm really interested in your response to this. So I had a coach who said that the reason in high school that they don't put in the system, they don't put in Grinnell, is because they said, well, I'm not going to put in this system because I have players who have the ability to go to college. And if I put in this system, other colleges aren't even going to like take a look at them because they're not even playing what they consider basketball. I'm just curious because I really don't know the answer to this. Like, is there validity to that statement? Is there not validity to that statement? I'm honestly, I don't know either way. So that's why I'm going to ask it to you.
It's a rational concern.
Yeah.
And I kind of alluded to it, is I felt when I was the varsity coach at Taft for that 1 year, I thought my best players were big guys. And I thought, they already had some interest from colleges, and I would have been doing them a disservice by going to the system. And now looking back, would I make the same decision? Most likely yes, but I wouldn't be as firm with that. Okay. I think a lot of where basketball is going now, which I think is absolutely beautiful, right? When Coach A kind of invented the system in the early 90s, people kind of had no idea what it was. And now, I mean, he was a visionary and an innovator, because now, right, just take a look at the Houston Rockets. Their biggest guy on the floor is 6'6", and they're just trying to get up, a bunch of threes, and they're breaking NBA records, right? 50 plus 3-point attempts in a playoff game. We call that a Tuesday night. They call it an NBA record, right? So there's a lot of different components of the system that translate well into the college game and where teams are going.
Yeah. The
ability to knock down an outside shot is huge. I mean, if you can shoot the basketball, there's somewhere in the country for you to be able to play. The ability to contain and oppress and not foul. If you can move your feet with high and wide hands and really disrupt another team, a coach is going to pick up on that. Being able to play with high energy and a really good motor, that's just invaluable to a team. You're going to find your way on the floor at the next level just because of that. So a coach is going to take a chance on you because that's such a tough that is such a tough thing for you to teach, and so tough for a player to learn. You could a guy can develop skills if he's if he's athletic and you look like he has a good foundation. Yeah, you'll develop a guy, but it's so difficult to teach a basketball player how to play at a high level and with such a good motor at that point. And then the last thing I would say is being able to press and play within a press and really just kind of disrupt another team. And I know that's really similar to what I said with being able to contain in a trap, but you're going to be down. We're not all fortunate enough to be up 12 points, on our opponents with 2 minutes to play every single game. Like, there are times you're going to need a guy who can press and contain in a press and not foul. And you want to be able to have a guy like that in the back pocket. And so that's really important as well. And I think the prevalence of AAU, of travel basketball, club basketball, whatever you want to call it, the spring and the summer, guys can kind of showcase their abilities in that sort of way too. And I think that there's more tournaments now, there's more events now, than shoot. It's been like 10, 11 years since I played, and I feel like it's exploded even more. And so I just think, as a high school coach, if you want to do right by your players, the system can teach a lot of skills that translate into the next level. But your players, if they are really good, if you do think they have a chance at playing at the next level, there's so many opportunities for them to showcase their abilities in other ways. And so trying to protect your players and help them get to the next level by not going with the system might not be the best way to approach it.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point though about like the idea of like the showcases and the AAU and things of that nature. Like, if your player has that ability to be at that next level, they're probably going to a lot of those things anyway. And so they're hopefully getting their name out and people are recognizing them. And then, like you said, like the system itself just teaches and implements a lot of things. And like you mentioned, like one of the things is a real high motor and, that real high work ethic and everything like that. And, there certainly are coaches who will always be looking for players who have that and want that in their system. Absolutely. So good. Thank you. So this system has been, like you said, it was around in the early 90s. Oh, and that actually reminded me of a coach that I know back home in Illinois. I won't say their name, but you were talking about how when the system was first implemented, how like it was just like mind blowing. There's a coach that I know who's still like really big on like Princeton offense and everything like that. And when they hear about Grinnell, I think they're about to keel over. So it's funny. So you've been running the system for so long that some of the schools that you play, I mean, they know what's happening. They know what to expect. They know what you're about. So for coaches who are maybe looking to run the system and maybe they're playing against, coaches who know what Grinnell is and know what the system is about, what are other teams trying to do to either counter you or defend you or try to prepare for you?
A really, really great question. So when I was playing at Grinnell, it was very rare for teams to shoot threes on us or try to shoot with us. We'd have teams who try to run with us, right? And they would just break the press and go get layups, which, didn't necessarily hurt us because we're trying to play a 3-for-2 game. And so even if they, on 10 straight possessions, they get all twos. And for us, on 7 out of 10 possessions, we get threes. We're still technically winning by 1 point. We're still in the lead. And so what we've seen a lot of is teams, and I think, again, this plays into where basketball is going now. A lot more offenses are a little bit more 3-point oriented. Sure. And I do think that plays a role in the teams are doing something they're already more comfortable with doing than maybe they weren't doing, 7, 8, 9 years ago when I was playing at Grinnell. What we've started to see is a lot of matchup zone, We've had teams try to press us if they feel like they have kind of the guards and wings who are athletic enough to press us and try to throw something different at us. It's worked. The pressing has worked, I guess. It's something that we necessarily haven't really anticipated before, but it's something that we'll definitely focus on making sure when we get back on the floor that it's something we're ready to do. Not a whole lot of teams do it. Just a couple of teams have tried it, and it's been good for us to see that, hey, maybe this is something that other teams they'll watch film. Maybe they don't have an idea of what to do. Maybe they'll try to press us, and we need to be prepared for it. But seeing more matchup zone, some teams have tried to run to like 2-3 zone spots, and then they match up out of that. That's very interesting too. But what we do as a coaching staff, we want to put our guys in positions to be successful. And so what we've done is, we look on film. Where do we think our preferred playmaker, either that's the point guard or someone out on the floor who we kind of trust to have the ball in their hands to either go get a shot or create a shot for someone else. Who can we, where can we put that player on offense where we think it's a soft spot, or where they might have a mismatch against that zone? Maybe we have to run a guy to a certain area because that's the big guy's responsibility on defense. And so if our preferred playmaker can get by him, it creates an advantage for us, and then we can look to get open shots in different areas. So it has forced us to be a little bit more creative, which I don't think is a bad thing. I just think it kind of enhances, our ability to counter what other teams try to throw at us and stop us. It slows us down a little bit more. I think what they're doing down at Greenville, what Dr. Barber's doing down at Greenville, his team this past season in 1920, they averaged like 135 points per game. And it's just, that's wild. They're averaging that many points per game. But, I just think it's, we finished second in the country in points per game as a team. And so, just around 109 last season. So I think for us, while there are teams that have seen it and they're maybe able to slow us down a little bit, we just need to, we find ways, and we use film study in order to find ways to kind of break those other teams and how they try to counter us. We try to put ourselves in the best position to be successful against those counters.
Right. And there's nothing that you're going to like see on film that another team is doing that's going to make you think like, oh, we're going to, overhaul, something fundamentally about this system. It's just like, okay, this is what they did. Let's just tweak, something here or there and just make a small little adjustment and then just kind of see what happens from there. Like doesn't sound like there's much like panic of like, oh, we got to do this something completely different because of like their, pressing or their matchup zone that they're doing.
Right. And I should specify, right, we're not watching an opponent play another team, because that does nothing for us. The only time we'll watch another team is we'll show our group, right? Here's how we did against them last time. Synergy is wonderful. And I really didn't know how great synergy was until I got to Grinnell, and the ability to kind of cherry pick different clips and not just have to fast forward through film. So I love synergy, and I love all those, video programs and software that make it easy for coaches. And so we won't necessarily show the entire film to our guys. We'll just watch it as coaches and pick out points that we think our guys need to see. But for me as a coach, what Dave and I watch, obviously we will watch the full game, but anytime we're watching film of the other team playing someone who doesn't run the system, it's to pick up on what their sideline and baseline out of bounds plays look like. And, I watch those films of us playing an opponent a little bit more closely to just kind of pick out their press breakers. It's something I do in game, kind of on the bench. As soon as we score, I'm up with the board trying to draw out their press breaker and where guys go. But for teams that we play multiple times a year, you watch film, you kind of see, okay, they tended to run this press breaker as opposed to that press breaker. And it really just kind of allows us to do more self-scouting
Yeah.
and focus on how we need to improve rather than this other team's coming in. They run a lot of ball screen sets. We should ice the ball screen, or maybe we should down the ball screen. That team is never going to run a ball screen against us. And I think that's another kind of really positive about being a system team is the ability to focus on yourselves and
True.
how we can improve as a group rather than focusing on how to stop another team.
Right. You know, they're preparing for you. they gotta, you know, be the ones who are, you know, making those adjustments and having to, you know, make decisions based off of like, oh, well, we're playing, you know, Grinnell next. So we know that this is happening. So this is what we have to do versus you. Like, you know, you are who you are and this is what we do. And like you said, there might be some minor tweaks and minor adjustments here and there, but like other teams kind of know what they're getting and it's up to them to, you know, see what they're going to do about it, so to speak.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes them uncomfortable, causes discomfort. It disrupts a team's rhythm. And I think that's why it's so much fun.
Well, I can imagine too, you know, if you're playing a schedule and you've played, you know, 6-7 games in a row with teams that have like a more traditional half court offense. And then it's like, oh, well, here we go. Now we're playing Grinnell. It's like, it's a complete shift for those teams. And it's like a complete shift that they have to make in order for them to be like, oh man, all right, here we go, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's funny. So before we hit our concluding segment, because this kind of flew by pretty quickly, I did want to touch on, you talked a bit about this like 3 for 2. And so I know that within the system, you got to have shooters, you got to have people who are ready to shoot and have the mentality of shooters mentality from 3. Are there things that you specifically like look at or look for to make sure that like your shooters from 3 are ready to go within the system, and that, hey, you're going to be in the system and you're going to be putting up like, you know, X amount of threes potentially, like we need to make sure that, you know, your release is good and this, that, and the other, and you're getting your shot off quickly? Are there certain things that for coaches looking the system, they want to make sure that their 3 shooters have down and are able to do?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And one thing that we try to do with our guys coming in, and even our guys who are, you know, still returning players, is we want to quicken up their release. And so a lot of times what you'll see with high school players is on the catch, they'll dip it and then they'll go up. And for us, if we can find an elite shooter who has a quick release, who's catching in the pocket and going up immediately rather than catching, dipping, and then going,
sure,
that's a guy that we really want, because he's already kind of at an advanced level for taking threes. But another thing that we look for, or that we tell guys, is you come in and you're dipping it, you've got to get on the doctor dish, and you've just got to work on catching and shooting, and just catching from that pocket wherever you catch it. You know, you've got to catch and go, and it's just got to be quicker. And that just, you know, addresses how quick the game is at the college level, and how much faster it is, and how much you know, the higher tempo of play. And you have to be able to get your 3 off. You can get your shot off in high school probably by, you know, catching and dipping, but the high school level, you know, a catch and a dip, that shot might not be there like it is in high school. So that's really what we try to instill in our athletes, is the ability to just catch and shoot from the pocket. Another thing that we teach is the bunny hop. It might not be the most accurate way, you know, to catch and shoot, but we teach it because it's just the fastest way. We think it's the fastest way you can get a shot off, and it's something that we implement with our guys when they come in. It's something that they can work on before the season starts. The guys have, say, 6 to 8 weeks being on campus when classes start before we start practices, and we can start to work with them. You've got to get the bunny hop down, and not only do you have to bunny hop, you've got to be able to bunny hop, catch in the pocket, and get a shot up from there. And I was as a high school player, I was more of a traditional 1-2 shooter, and I got to Grinnell, and Coach A said, you've got to get comfortable shooting off the bunny hop. And was it easy to get there? No. Was it pretty to get there? no chance. There's a lot of bad misses that I might still have nightmares about in an empty gym on a shooting machine. But you know, you can't be successful and improve, you know, while just being successful only. In order to improve and to grow, failure comes with that.
Sure.
And it's a lot bit better to fail with no one watching in an empty gym than to continue to struggle with fans in the gym and playing an opponent. And so
Sure.
I think that's an important lesson for players to learn.
Sure. No, I like that part. Yeah, make those mistakes, you know, be comfortable in practice, empty gym, sure. Make all the mistakes that you want. Go, you know, go for it. Like that's what that we're here for, is for hoping that you make those mistakes. You know, I've heard coaches talk about, like, if you're not making mistakes in practice, I don't know what we're doing. Because like you should be having things that you need to refine or shore up or just be fixing. So no, I like that. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm definitely going to, in our show notes, make sure I put information for coaches who are looking more for like more nuts and bolts and more the guts in terms of the implementation for it. But before I go into the concluding segment that I do, I wanted to give you the opportunity, Coach, if there were anything in particular, maybe points of just refinement or things that, you know, coaches should keep in mind, especially at the high school level, if they're looking at the system. Was there anything that you wanted to touch on really quickly and talk about to make sure that coaches are thinking about before we hit that concluding segment?
Yeah, I would just say, don't be afraid. One of my favorite memories of being a player at Grinnell College is the night we set the record. We set two records. One record we set, which is the one we were going for, was most players from a single team to hit a 3-point shot in a single game. We dressed 20 guys. We had 19 guys hit a three.
Yeah.
But that 20th guy scored. So we set the record for most players from a single team to score in a game, which was 20. But to me, the beauty of the system, and we've kind of touched on it already, is being able to just find ways for everyone to contribute.
Sure.
And so that night we go into the game and we just get a big enough lead where Coach A says to us, all right, look, in your shift, if you've already hit a 3-point shot, like, you're done. You're not shooting anymore. You're working to get everyone else a 3-point shot in your group. Once that guy hits a 3, you're moving on to the next guy. Once you've all hit a 3, and maybe we've made some substitutions to get some of the other guys in your groups, then, you know, if you're all on the floor and you've hit a 3, then we want to go back to what we're trying to do and get shots out of who we want. But until that time, you're working to get someone a 3 if you're not on the floor. And to me, that's kind of when it all clicked.
Yeah.
Was how important everyone on the floor is when you're in the system, and rewarding guys for their high energy or their effort, things that aren't going to show up in the box score, but are going to help you win. And while some people might think, you know, the system isn't real basketball, okay, that's how you approach it. Then why are there at least a dozen different offenses and defensive concepts run by so many different teams? You know, there's no one right way to play the game of basketball. To me, and you can call me biased, and you're probably right, I think the system is the most fun way to play the game of basketball. But I just think there's a lot of fear around how coaches will be perceived, how teams will be looked at. Yes, when you're not hitting shots and the other team is making a lot, it's ugly. But with those ugly games come a lot of really, really fun games that create special moments for kids. And not everyone has teams where every single one of your players is going to go play at the next level. Those are, you know, teams are probably prep schools, at which, you know, that's their job, is kids go there so they can get to the next level. But for a regular high school team, you might have 0 guys go to the next level from your team every year. That year, the next year you might have 5 or 6. And the system just gives you the flexibility and freedom to create a moment and create special memories for everyone on the team, everyone on the floor. everyone on the bench, not just the guys who are going to be able to go play for another 4 years.
Yeah, I really like that. That was really well said. Those moments that'll last those kids forever, but not even the ones that go on to the next level, but especially those ones in high school too. You know, those would be the moments, games like that where everybody had a chance to be successful. I'm sure those are the things that'll stick with them probably for the rest of their life. And so I like that a lot. Now, in our concluding segment, here's a couple questions that I ask, and one of them, it almost like you already answered it already, but from your coaching career, what is a coaching moment of yours that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
Yeah, so it happened last season. We had enough guys on our roster to play 5 JV games. And in our first 2 JV games, we had a player go, he was a first year, he went 25 or 51 from the 3-point line in over 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just incredible to watch.
Sure.
And we realized he probably shouldn't play any more JV games, because if he can hit 25 out of 51 over 2 games, he could probably help us in some form or fashion. And then watching the film, you kind of you try to figure out, well, geez, he could get 51 off over 2 games. Why is he so open? And what is the cause behind him being able to get off 51 shots?
Yeah.
And what we realized was there was another guy on his shift who knew that getting this guy the ball was going to help the team, give the team the best chance to win. And so every single time this guy is getting up a 3, we're sitting there and his teammates setting a screen for him, or his teammates in the vicinity trying to set a screen for him to help him get a shot off. And at that point, the shooter didn't play another JV game that year.
Yeah.
And then the guy who was screening for him played maybe one more JV game that year.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually got both of those guys in our rotation for our next game after those 2 JV games, for our next varsity game. And we put them on the floor in the same group. And the shooter ended up, I think he hit like 7 or 8 threes in that game. It was incredible. It was like his first varsity action as a first year. And Coach Dave and I went into that saying, if he can get those shots off, and this guy buys into his role and understands if he wants to be on the floor, that's what he needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
We need to reward that. And it's being able to celebrate the guys and reward the guys who maybe what they're doing isn't showing up in the box score, but what they're doing needs to be rewarded and celebrated. And that's going to stick with me for the rest of my coaching career as, hey, this is something where you've just got to find ways to celebrate guys. And is it going to give you the most talented group on the floor? Probably not, but you need to find ways to celebrate the guys who do the little things. And I think it's something I've touched on over the past hour here, but to me, it's just the beauty of coaching and being able to run the system.
And that ties into what we just sort of talked about how as a coach, you might be at a high school where, players aren't really going to the next level, and some of the things that they do, like, might not show up on a box score. But if you're like a high school coach and you're like celebrating, those successes that don't necessarily take basketball skill, then like everyone's going to be happier and everyone's going to have a really great experience. And again, for those players who aren't looking to really play beyond high school, for them just to have like a great experience with basketball and, build that camaraderie and be around like great teammates and learn about life through the game. Like, to me as a coach, like, I couldn't ask for anything more than that. So I think that there's, benefits in so many ways from that. The basketball stuff is great, and obviously we celebrate that, but if players are doing all the right things and they're giving maximum effort, there's so many life skills that they're learning that even if they don't play basketball beyond high school, like they're getting something out of that experience.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, Coach, to wrap up, I give every guest what I call my 60-second soapbox. It's your opportunity to get out a final thought, a final idea, kind of a closing message that you want our listeners to be left with. So I'm going to go ahead and open the floor to you, Coach. Go ahead.
I think there's true power in coaching with positivity. I know there are a lot of different ways that coaches try to motivate their players. Maybe sometimes you have to be a little bit harsh on a guy. Not every player wants to be coached in the same exact way. And that's understandable too. Players aren't robots, they're people, they're humans, and you have to find a way to tap into their motivation and what means a lot to them on the floor and off the floor. But I don't really know if negativity is ever the right way to do it. I think that there's so much power and weight in being able to find a way to just be positive for a guy and to create a positive environment within a team and create a positive team culture. And while it might take that extra 2 seconds to think of, I have this negative thought I want to share, but I would like to share it in a positive way, taking those 2 seconds to find the way to shape the negative and translate it into something positive, I think there's power in that.
Sure.
And not only will it make you a better coach, I think it helps cultivate healthier relationships with players. And I think it demonstrates to them what they would like to see and how they can go about approaching life and kind of any conflict that arises in their lives, finding a way to be positive through it all.
Yeah, and I feel like so many of these things really just come down to relationships, knowing your players, knowing who you're speaking to, and I think that the best experiences that players and coaches have is when they realize that there's a lot beyond basketball that's taking place there,
Yeah.
and knowing the people and being positive. And I think something for me personally, and it sounds like you're kind of the same way, is I want all my players to leave my program having a positive association with basketball and always thinking of it as positively. And I think that we as coaches need to make sure that our love for the game and our positivity kind of radiates through, so that association is apparent. And I think that if we can, the more people we can, have to fall in love with the game, and then maybe later they come back or they start coaching themselves and things like that, like it's all good things that build on each other. 100%. Love it. Well, I want to thank you, Coach, for spending some time. We talked about the system and so much more, and things that I think a lot of coaches could reflect on or think about. And like I said a couple times, I'll definitely make sure in our show notes to leave some information about the system for coaches who might be really looking to implement it or see more about what it's about. But Coach Levin, I want to thank you for giving your insight about it and talking about your experiences playing and coaching in it, and the benefits that you see with it. It was a great conversation. So I really hope that you have some games that you get to coach going forward, and that everyone's able to stay safe, and basketball gets to happen soon. So Coach, I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Take care.
Yep. Thank you guys. And thank you guys for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.